Hey everyone, Sloan here with another episode of the Free Money Podcast. This episode, we're joined by Ruchit Garg, who's the founder of the Harvesting Farmer Network in India. This is a really, really interesting platform that he's built, which is sort of like a modern version of an agricultural cooperative that uses a mix of AI, research, and just realistic understandings of what it's like to be a smallholder farmer in India to build a much more efficient market for agricultural goods in India. Given our interest in gardening, we were of course interested to get some tips, and I won't kind of give away what we talked about. But in addition to that, Ashby and I also did our usual rounds of banter, talking about ancient spreadsheets from places other than Babylon, places, whether or not investment institutions are ever going to really start relying on advice from AI, and, just the vibes and the mood. So in any case, if this is interesting to you and you're liking the podcast, please follow along, rate us on your podcast platform of choice, and feel free to send us a question at freemoneypod@gmail.com that we'll answer in an upcoming episode. I'm so excited about the spate of guests that we've got coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I just can't wait to share it with you. So without further ado, take it away, Sharkbait. Give them the disclaimer.
Ahoy, Free Money Podcast listeners! I'm Sharkbait Buckley, the Disclosure Pirate, and I'm here to set ye straight about what's going on with this here show. Sloan Ortel works for Invest Vegan LLC, a New York registered investment advisor. Ashby Monk works for Stanford University, Adapar, Future Proof, Long Game, and various startups. All opinions expressed by either Sloan or Ashby are entirely their own, and do not reflect the opinions of their crew or any company. Clients who invest vegan may maintain positions in securities and strategies discussed in this podcast. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Invest Vegan and its representatives are properly licensed or exempted, and a client agreement has been executed. Arr!
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar.
Welcome to the Free Money Podcast. It's where we explore the world of institutional investing in a way that hopefully doesn't bore you to sleep. How you doing, Ashby?
I'm good. I was about to sing a song. I think Ella Fitzgerald. Summertime and the living's
It's so
easy.
true. So true. Like I love being able to like pop out and like mess around in the garden in between meetings and stuff like that. Like the mental health benefits of it being the summer are just outrageous.
Can I tell you that my parents, we did a little early Father's Day last weekend. Because we're going on a trip to the United Kingdom with my family over Father's Day. And they were like, all right, somebody needs to come and take care of your mint. Because I told you, I planted mint in my garden, and it looks like it is a space alien invasion. Like, there is so much mint there. It is a like 5-foot by 10-foot box, and it is all mint.
Wow.
It is like a mint planet. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's early in the morning, but yeah.
Sounds like you got to make some juleps there.
I know.
Like, I'm picturing you like sitting on your porch in an all white suit. Like
mint tea.
Yeah, smoking a cigarette on a Gauloise, just like...
Oh, my goodness. The good old days when we didn't know what gave you cancer.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, look, we're back at it. I feel like we keep stalling, but I think we're going to have a series here, Sloan.
I believe so.
We have a series of... Is it agriculture related?
I mean, I think it's pretty broadly agriculture, climate, and stuff that interests us related. Which is like...
Which is a pretty broad... I think you and I were going back and forth on the 100% certainty that aliens are on our planet now. That was the other thing that now interests us.
Yeah. Yeah, this is from a colleague of yours. I was like sitting like upstairs watching, like catching up on sessions from the SALT conference a couple weeks ago. And I saw this thing where it's like,
the headline is 100% aliens are here.
Yeah, that's pretty sure. That's a high probability.
I don't usually assign 100% probability to low probability things.
No. 100%.
And this guy's kind of credible too. He's like, he's founded like a billion companies. A couple of them are listed on NASDAQ. I mean, he's a professor at Stanford School of Medicine.
I know.
And to hear him tell it, it's basically like, look, it's not about the hypothesis about what kind of alien it is. It's like, do you believe the data that the government released about these various like objects that are flying in ways we can't explain?
Yeah. Do you believe it? Yeah.
And that is really mind-blowing. The other mind-blowing thing is that video, no one showed up for that session. The conference room was like completely empty.
Interesting.
So like, shame on SALT conference attendees, right? Like, you think that the 100% aliens are real guy is going to be a popular session.
And Among Us.
Yeah.
Not just real, like out there somewhere, which I think some of us, including me, is willing to accept. It's a big universe. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's really, easy to grant the hypothesis that they exist somewhere. The interesting thing to me again about this video is that this guy actually at one point throws out like, oh yeah, I'm not so worried that they're going to take over the world and ruin us. I'm thinking about how can we use this.
Yeah, he's trying to reverse engineer all the technology.
Yeah.
And the point, and then I'll get to the news, but the point that I thought was really fun was, hey, like, you guys are all wondering why these little craft are crashing. Like, they sent these craft 22 million years ago to cross the galaxy. They're self-replicating spaceships that are looking for planets to, they're drones. And they're meant to go and look around. And if they crash, fine. They send the data back before, they crash. And when you start thinking about it like that, you're like, oh, yeah, that is probably like, that could be real.
That could be real. Yeah. And then you also go, like, the other thing that, I was like, I got to send this to Ashby because they were talking about this as a big data project. Like a data organization project where, basically the search for extraterrestrial intelligence inside of the government at this point has more to do with getting all of the various pieces of information from various departments aggregated in a way that they can actually be analyzed.
Amazing.
Sound familiar?
It does. It does. Speaking of space aliens, long-term investing is also strange, and you need to make long-term investments to get from the other side of the galaxy to our side of the galaxy.
They call him the king of the segue.
There's a perfect segue there, Sloan. In 2021, and I am into the news now, just for everybody's, if you're looking to segment our show, we are into the news section. The Financial Conduct Authority in 2021 approved a new long-term investment vehicle called the Long-Term Asset Fund. And the LTAF was established by the FCA, and I'm going to just read the quote, to allow for that long-term illiquid assets can provide a useful alternative investment opportunity for investors with long time horizons. The FCA also notes that an ability to invest in illiquid assets through an appropriately designed and managed investment vehicle is important to support economic growth and transition to a low-carbon economy. How neato.
That's so weird. What a great idea.
I know. It's like the government doing something real neato. And what I think is fabulous about this is so much of what we end up doing in asset management is governed by these legal structures, these tax structures. Like, oh, well, we have to do GPLP structures because of the tax. Well, the reason I'm bringing this up now, because it was approved first in 2021, is that the very first long-term asset fund, the specific fund, according to the FCA, was authorized. First one at the end of May. So they approved this thing in 2021, and the world blew up in terms of markets. Now we're 2023. We've got the first LTAF. So I think that's pretty fabulous.
So this is going to allow them to just like, it's basically a permanent fund structure, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's kind of like an evergreen. It's a little bit like a corporate, I think, but in the context of the UK legal environment. It's like an evergreen fund structure.
It's so weird to like, get into this world and realize that what gets you exciting is completely not intuitive to anybody who is outside of it.
100%.
Like it's like, oh my god, yeah, slight revisions in the oversight regulations around long-term investment funds. I can't believe it.
I know.
I feel like, I hear stuff like that and I behave like a woman in a shampoo commercial where I'm like running my fingers through my hair and like moaning, and I just can't explain it to anybody outside of this investment world.
I can't either, and I just finished teaching this class on long-term investing, and sometimes you just see the eyes glaze. I teach class and I see people sleeping in my classes. Oh yeah, it happens.
Really? I mean, that's hard for me to believe. I mean, I would imagine that you would be, giving them the memes, reaching the kids, keeping them interested.
I'm keeping it real in there, Sloan. I'm doing the comedy. I'm doing the jokes. I call on people that are asleep because it's not hard to spot you. Like that's what I do. I'd be like, this kid's sleeping. Let's ask him. It's very good comedy for the rest of the class when you do that.
Exactly.
When you call up the kid. And I had one kid whose hand was broken on a bike accident, and he kept stretching his hand in class because he was like doing his PT, I think, in my class. But I just kept calling on him because I would he'd be doing his exercises, and I would then purposefully say, "Any students have an idea?" And his exercise with his hand is going, and I'd be like, "Okay, back to you. You got an idea?" And he's like,
"Yeah.
No, Dr. Mug, my hand is broken." And I would just be like, I know. All right, I've got one more bit of news. I had two more bits, but I think we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Kosovo, which is a country people my generation, I'm in my mid-40s, know just because of the war there ages ago. But Kosovo, small country in southeastern Europe, emerged as one of the independent states coming out of what we called the Balkan conflict, is establishing its first sovereign wealth fund. And in particular, it's establishing a sovereign development fund, which will be tasked with attracting foreign investment into Kosovo in order to drive jobs, drive industry, all the stuff that we've now come to associate with sovereign development funds. So Kosovo is the latest country to establish a fund and frankly, establish a sovereign development fund.
There's a saying that comedy is tragedy plus time. And I think that's kind of applicable to sovereign development funds, right? Sovereign development funds are tragedy plus time.
I guess if you kind of link tragedy to like sincere need,
exactly.
You just need jobs, you need an industry, you need something, you're missing it. That's the tragedy, and the SDF is coming in to fix that.
Exactly. It's one of the great mechanisms for that. And again, in yet another masterful segue. Speaking of coming in to fix a thing.
Yes.
I think it's time we introduce our guest.
Let's get our guest going.
Yeah, we've got Ruchit Garg with us, who, from a Twitter account, has built this network of smallholder farmers in India that is like really, really exciting from all sorts of standpoints, not just because we're gardening geeks and we're hoping that he's going to give us some tips.
Greatest tip. Hey, Ruchit.
Hey, hi, Sloan.
Good to see you. You're calling in. You're coming to us live from India, I think. Which part of India are you in right now?
I am calling in from India, northern part. Right now, it's 9:30 p.m. here.
Okay.
Are we global or what?
We're bringing. Yeah. So here you're at the end of the day. We're at the beginning of the day. That's how the planet works. Just FYI, everybody. Ruchit, give us a sense before we jump into all of the specific innovations. Just talk to us about your background and the background of the small kind of farmers in India, and then, what motivated you to get involved in this. Let's just set the stage here because it's a pretty exciting opportunity.
Sure, awesome. So I grew up in India, lower middle class family, lost my father very early on. But there was a point in life where four of us was living in a 100 square feet place with my siblings and so forth. Long story short, ended up doing my master's in computers. Microsoft hired me in India. They loved my work, so they moved me to Redmond, Washington, where I helped build Xbox operating system and stuff like that.
Whoa.
Got
Thanks for
bored.
that. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that as a kid.
Yeah, no, we still enjoy your work. This is great.
So, so in 2011, I left Microsoft, started my first company in US in one of those garage in Redmond, Washington. Sold it off in 2016, and at that point, I started thinking about my roots, wherein because I came from a family where my grandfather was a small scale farmer, and I realized that I should do something with a little bit of money I made and the network and all the connections. And I started thinking about the farming, and quickly I realized that the world is fed by small scale farmers. um, According to definitions, farmer who has less than 2 hectares of land are called small scale farmers, and there are about 480 million of them in the world. So 80% of the food comes from small scale farmers.
Wow.
And yeah, it's surprising. I mean, I know in US, when you look in California, almond
Yeah.
farms, they're like 40 hectares, 100 hectares. You
Yeah.
can't see one end to other end, but that's very tiny fraction of the food where it comes from.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's not the most kind of helpful model for the earth too, right? To grow these giant industrial
exactly,
monocultures.
exactly. Yes, monocultures. We'll get there, right? So. So I started thinking about what is the way we can actually make these small scale farmers more successful, because growing up in India, we saw a lot of these farmers struggling. We saw thousands of these farmers taking their lives because they didn't have way to pay or feed their own family. And it's kind of surprising because they are the ones who are growing the food and they don't have the food to feed themselves. So started working into it. I was in Silicon Valley that time and started looking into from a global scale on how I can actually solve this problem. And more I looked into this from my nerdy mind, I started looking it as a information asymmetry problem. What I realized
Hmm.
that on one hand we have billions of people in the farming involved, and then on the other hand, we have a lot of people who want to buy food. They want to give loans to the farmer, insurance to the farmer, and all sort of things. But there's a information asymmetry between these two giant pieces, and technology happens to be good player when it comes to solving asymmetry problems. So my initial goal was to sort of build an AI, sort of a Google map for agriculture, where if I throw a dart on the globe, wherever it might land, the machine should be able to tell whether it's a farmland, what is grown, how much is grown. Because if you think from the money perspective, it's a multi-trillion dollar asset which
Hmm.
nobody has a clue on, right? So imagine being able to monitor and do things on that data. You can not only make money, but you can actually help farmer be more prosperous. So that was the idea, and then we started building this high performance computing engine where we have like 20,000 servers in the Google Cloud, running and getting the data from satellite and bunch of stuff where we could actually started figuring out where is rice, where is wheat in Thailand and in India and things like that. However, over the time, I realized that the data we may have is not going to directly help the smallholder farmers. And around the same time, I said, you know what, I should actually leave Silicon Valley and live very close to farmers. And I packed my bag, sold everything I had in Silicon Valley, moved my family with my kids back to India in 2019.
Oh wow.
The classic immigration story.
Yeah, exactly.
Leaving
Yeah.
America to go
Yeah,
back to
yeah,
India.
yeah, for opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Good for you, Ruchit.
11 years in US, I uprooted everything I had back to India. It was first few months, it was terrible and frustrating because, oh, I don't know why people are honking on the streets, and how do I
Can't believe
things
it.
like that,
Yeah.
why Everybody stops at the red light and stuff like that. But I think it what happened that, soon after landing India, a couple of months, we are into COVID, and I was like, oh, you know what? I don't know what to do. We're all logged into our homes, and I can't go out to meet farmers and stuff like that. And that's where I think this light bulb, started, wherein I could not build an app. I could not go to meet the farmers, but I said, "Oh, I have bunch of farmers on my mobile phone. Let me text them and see if they need any help selling their crops." I had 6, 7 farmers, and I started a Twitter account wherein I started posting about, oh, this guy from northern UP want to sell 200 kilos of papaya, or there is another guy in the west of UP want to sell 500 kilos of carrots and stuff like that. And it was April 12th, 2020. I distinctly remember I posted about 6 farmers, and it just literally took off. In 18 months, I have about $500 million worth of crops. Farmer WhatsApping me on my personal WhatsApp, where 4 in the morning to 12 in the night, only thing I would do is read the message on my own personal phone, post it on Twitter, and people were buying crops online. So
That's
Wow.
great. I love that you've got like you have this crazy journey where you're like, all right, let's do this big data problem. Let's get all these servers, all this stuff. And then you're like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna text farmers.
Yeah, exactly. I'm literally going to write down, maybe even by hand, what people are sending me on WhatsApp, and then I'm going to rewrite it on Twitter.
so
Sorry, that was the beginning. That's not the end. That was the beginning.
Yeah.
and um and I mean, it was all unintentional. I was not thinking about making a business out of it. I was like, you know what, I was just stuck here in this apartment. We can't go out. Maybe you can use my Twitter and WhatsApp and stuff like that for the use. And it just little took off, and that's where I realized I was trying to help farmer do financial inclusion, and I think nothing beats the financial inclusion for farmer than actually helping them make more money. So it's not about lending and insurance. It's about, hey, if I can help farmers sell more crops at a better price, there's nothing like it. So that was an
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a huge. I mean, like you hear a lot of people try and argue that farming is a story of finance from the standpoint of like you need to be able to like sell the crops in advance, so hence we have the futures contract. You need to be able to borrow money to buy seeds, hence we have specialized lenders. But the kind of like market development angle is often neglected. I'm curious, like there's this ancient cooperative model
Yeah,
that farmers have used, right? And it seems like I think HFN is, you describe it as a farmers cooperative in some sense. So like, can you talk about the history and the future of that model as you see it?
sure. So in India, we have about 120 small scale farmers, and about 85% of them are very, very small. So I work
You
with
120
farmers.
million small scale farmers, right?
Yes. So if you look at from the family perspective, that's about 500 million people who are in
Yep.
farming, and then about another 500 million people who have services and tools and products in the farming. For example, somebody creating tractor, or somebody creating pesticides and fertilizers and stuff like that, right? So if you look at
Hmm.
small scale farmer, the problem is they're small, they're too small. They buy everything at at a retail price, and they sell
Hmm.
everything at wholesale price. So when that happens, you are losing at both ends. When you're too small, market doesn't recognize that you exist. So that's where the cooperative model comes, where bunch of farmers come together and cooperate for the larger good. That is, hey, 100 of us, let's buy seed together. I'll buy 100 bag together, and then that will get a discount. And then if we are selling output, that is produce or the crops together, It's easier to transport. Maybe you have a more negotiating power and so forth. That has been the traditional model. There are some good example. India has done fairly well in terms of dairy cooperative. Amul is a very, very large example, super successful in India. However, it has not really picked up when it comes to vegetables and other crops. So what we have done, we realize that while co-op is the way to go, because many small farmers coming together makes a big farmer, simple, right? But technology allows us to have these farmers cooperate beyond their physical vicinity, right? The farmers, even the neighboring village, can start cooperating because technology allows them to share the data and intelligence and so forth. And that's what we did. So using simple mobile app, we allow farmers to come together, share the information, which allows these guys to buy seeds for cheap, get free advisory, and then also allows them to sell the crop to large cooperative.
That's really cool. That's really really
Very.
cool. But like,
Yeah.
okay,
So
so but like AI though, like what
yeah.
like is that like, I mean it in I manage money in the public markets, and like everything is AI all of a sudden.
Hmm?
Is this really AI? Like how does a smallholder farmer like need AI?
Yeah. So it's a very interesting way to use AI in which we are using it in the ground. For example, uh, imagine a very small farmer in a remote India have some sort of a crop infestation. That guy typically doesn't know what to do when that happens. So instead of creating a new mobile app, what we have done, we have created an AI service where a farmer takes a picture of the crop infestation, the
Hmm.
image hits our server, and within seconds, farmer gets an answer. Hey, your sugar cane has this black worm. By the way, here's the solution for that. And if you want a cheaper priced product, then you go buy from HFN Center. So it not only
Huh.
allows farmers to have the agriculture doctor in their pockets, but also allows them to buy affordable product at a better pricing, which is available at their nearest HFN farmer center.
Ashby's
So,
wondering if he
so
could get that in Palo Alto.
I do. Well, I have an app, which I won't mention because they're not sponsors of the show yet. But I do have an app that will diagnose my plants. So it's fun to hear you're doing that. And Richard, I can remember when we first met, it was like, I don't know, 2016, 17. You were thinking of using geospatial to go in
Yep.
and look at crops like the small cropland. And so it's interesting to hear you actually don't need satellites, to understand the health and the quality of the crops. You need those farmers to be geolocated and take some pictures of where they are
Yeah. So
and
yes, and
upload those pictures.
both has different use cases. So while I have a farmer taking these pictures, I also farmer is also telling me indirectly that this is where he is standing. This is the crop he's growing, and I can ask some more information about. Hey, tell me what size of the land you have, so that I can prescribe you right dosage for the crop. What it does, it allows me to get free ground truth data, which when you corroborate with the satellite data allows me to do a macro picture, right? So
Hmm.
imagine whatever work we are doing from the satellite. We were very good initially to build top down model wherein from satellite we were able to see things, but now we have a almost free engine where millions of farmers would give us data which is true because they need free advice and things like that. And when this information comes together, we are able to predict, monitor, and do a lot of things about the farm and the data around it. For example, in the state of Punjab in India, we are the only private agency who is able to tell how many lakh of hectares of wheat grown in entire state, and within 15 days we are able to update that data, which is worth billions of dollars in terms of the crop value. So that
Wow.
can be done for 6, 7, 60, 400 crops over the time, as we have more and more farmer who are able to work with us, because it has a far reaching implications. India has about, in agriculture, about 400 billion dollar plus opportunity, all combined, when it comes to input, output, tools, and other services. So imagine being able to
Wow.
actually tell all the fertilizer company that, hey, this is the crop which is growing, or insurance company saying, hey, this is the place where there's no crop because of hailstorm, and then you need to give them insurance. Or even working with government, because today uh, they have very little idea in terms of what happens on the ground at that farm level. It's a
That's
trillion
so
dollar
cool.
opportunity in front of us.
And I think when I think about this too, I think about it in terms of climate resilience. Like, here in the US, I know, like, you're starting to see these really interesting situations where, farmers in Oregon are collaborating with farmers in Mexico
Yep.
because, as the climate changes, you're able to grow crops that historically wouldn't have worked in Oregon, but now you're able to grow it. I mean, like, I'm in Utah, and the weather for the last 5 years looks nothing like the weather, for the previous 30. Are you starting to see instances where you can say, like, hey, what's up, Mr. Farmer? You should grow this variety of amaranth or this variety of this or that or the other thing.
Yeah, so there's definitely a shift, because entire world is divided into 27 agroecological zones, and those zones are shifting because of shift of the weather pattern. And that's where also I think the AI would really help, because all the generational information farmer have been getting from the forefathers is no longer working, because suddenly the rains are not on the same month, and so on and so forth. So while we are building those capabilities, we at the moment are not prescribing farmers that, hey, you should go and change the crop, because that's a huge burden on us to be able to say to the folks that don't grow that, do this, because it's somebody's livelihood. We can
Yep.
guide them that, hey, take a look at that, because it comes with a lot of responsibility.
Got it. That's so cool. And so I assume that you've got a really awesome garden or farm of your own.
Before you do that, before you give us your garden tip, though, can we connect all this data
Oh,
into
yeah.
the loans that we could provide farmers, into the lending, into
Good point.
yes, because I want to hear, I'm the finance nerd, and so
Yep.
I want to hear, like, this is alternative data. Can we actually use this to allocate capital more efficiently and unlock free money for people?
Yes, it can definitely get better, because when I know a farm and I know what quantities of the crop on the farm, I can essentially say in 3 months the farmer is going to make that money. So let's say it's a $50,000 worth of crop sitting uh, for the farmer. A bank can decide that, okay, I can take this risk, and 10% of that value I can write right away. The problem right now we have is, it's too costly for the bank to actually go to the farm to write a small check.
Mm.
Now with satellite and all the AI work we are doing, they can start taking those risks, because that guy doesn't have to go to the farm and can afford to write small checks. So using alternative credit score, we call um, um, farm score. And what we have done is, we have looked at the farm, and then we have said, okay, tell me how far that farm is near to the main highway, or freeway, how far that farm is near to the market, how far that farm is near to a water source. Because when you put all this together, I know a farm closer to the market, closer to the road, closer to the water source is likely to get better prices, right? So we are doing these
Hmm.
experiments.
Yeah.
There's long road ahead for us, but that's where we see going ahead with all the data we are connecting.
That's so cool.
I love it.
That's so cool. And if you think about the balance sheet of those small farms, To the extent, I mean, you're obviously not dealing with a balance sheet that's like been prepared by an accountant. But that 10% of crop value loan is like the difference between a kid who can go to school and a kid who can't.
This is like really data-driven microfinance. Like this was the original microfinance, funding farmers with like $100 checks to go buy new tool, fertilizer.
Yeah. Well, but like, and the thing too is that a lot of those microfinance loans like precipitated farmers setting themselves on fire, right? Because they weren't made with like adequate understanding of the underlying farm, right? You just sort of are like provisioning leverage for anybody who wants it, versus this where you're making a smart loan that's likely to get paid back.
Metaphorical fire metaphors.
I mean, Ruchit can corroborate. We're talking about literal people. People literally set themselves on fire because of debt, right?
What?
And yeah,
this just took a turn. This podcast here. Ruchit, give us some tips.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm actually located right now on the historical farmhouse that a family member of mine built in Utah when it was still Mexico. And the soil here is very similar to like Rajasthan. It's heavy clay soil. So I'm really hoping that you can help us kind of fix this whole situation.
I mean, if it is Rajasthan, it's called arid, that is low water condition. I'm no way close to being an agronomist, but one of the things I recently discovered, one of our partners, they have come up with these Japanese technologies which they are bringing to India, wherein if you put a spoonful of, I'm talking about gardening, and this can be used for farming as well. So, and I've started using this in my plants outside in my courtyard here. And if you put this particular formula in your soil, you don't have to water your plant for many days. So it's a formula. There's this white color formula which you put when you are doing farming or when you are doing gardening, and it allows soil to retain water. So if you are in a arid region, that means you would have use less water, and it also allows the nutrient to not flow out of the farm. So typically what happens is, let's say you have put in some nutrient and there is some sort of a flood which happens or some sort of a rain which happens, but by putting this particular polymer in the soil, farmer is able to retain the nutrient in the soil for longer time. So it allows farmer to use lesser chemicals in the farm. It also allows chemicals not flowing into the drainage, and some long lasting impact farmer has. So again, I don't have the formula here, but I can send ISB offline the details of it. But it's a really nice thing I've started using in my clay pots here in my home, where I have some rose plants and some other flowering plant, and I could see I don't have to water them daily. I can skip couple of days in this scorching heat we have in India.
Wow, I've heard about some of these formulas. It's really crazy what people are doing with science these days.
Yep.
And I love the fact that you're going to deliver all that type of insight with AI at scale across the continent.
Yes.
It's
amazing.
In
like 700 languages, probably, right? I mean,
I forgot about all the different languages.
Yeah, like I think India has something like in the Constitution, I think India has like 12 or 13 languages, and then many more than that on the ground.
Lot of languages. So we are right now working in Hindi and English primarily, but we have built systems which is capable of 6 to 7 languages. We are in fact right now, another part of the AI we are working on, that in the farming it's all about trust. So we are working on, okay, if a farmer calls in from a particular geography, they may be a Hindi speaking geography, but they speak Hindi slightly differently. Like there's a dialect and there's an accent, right? There's a heavy southern accent like you may have in US, right? Similarly, so what we are thinking is, what if my AI speaks back to the farmer in that accent? Because then he can open up. He's not no longer talking to foreigner, right?
Oh my
And
gosh,
for
it's
me,
amazing.
uh, very small things, but very meaningful things.
I think Hillary Clinton tried that approach in her speeches when she would say "y'all." Am I wrong? I don't know how that worked for her, but anyway.
Well, yeah, and she'd also be like, "I carry hot sauce everywhere with me. I'm so down to earth.
I'm just a woman of the people, you know."
I mean,
Ruchit, thank you for coming on the show and telling us about harvesting and all the work you're doing. It's amazing to think that we
Thank
had
you.
that coffee at Stanford 6 years ago and you've accomplished all this. And let's do some plugging here. Ruchit will be back to give a lecture at Stanford. I think maybe it's this September, and it's going to be
Yes.
standing room only, apparently.
a barn burner.
Barn burner. But thank you, Ruchit. We'll let you go. Get back to your evening with your family. Stay safe.
And we'll look forward to the name of that compound so that we can
Yeah, we need that the Japanese compound.
Yeah, give us that Japan stuff. Anyway, thank you so much, Ruchit.
Bye. Beautiful.
Oh my gosh. I think that compound might be called effective microorganisms.
Oh.
But yeah, like it really is crazy how, like, there's so many soil amendments that you can buy. There's so many different things that you can put into to the ground. And like, as a gardener who's doing it for funsies,
Yeah.
you sort of go, oh, $20, fine, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But on a 2-hectare plot,
Yeah.
if you're doing it for your livelihood, that's a
pricey.
huge expenditure.
Yeah.
And like it's and you're just gonna not take the risk unless you have a really good reason to.
100%. Yeah. Isn't that funny? The soil, like all these, what are they? Soil amendments? Is that what we call them?
Yep.
I can remember my mom just putting eggshells in the garden and like doing all this different stuff just to like try to get the pH right.
Yep.
And get different minerals in there. And then my father-in-law, he has acres of grapes, would take oyster shells and put oyster shells because I think that gives it a limestone characteristic, which is pretty similar to I don't even know what. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll save my garden stories for the gardening segment, but let's talk about hard things, man. Like what's going on in your what's tough for you these days? Oh.
I'll be right back.
Well, I guess I'll just tell this story now that so I'm in Provo, Utah, which is, kind of similar to Pleasantville for those of you who aren't familiar with the built environment out here. And, I've been kind of flipping my parking strips and I'm starting to get looked at like an absolute lunatic because our house looks like, a constant construction zone. I just started telling my garden story while you got up.
Yeah. But now, you realize that I didn't have my pants on during this whole thing. Yeah. I literally am sitting here in the morning, summer break. Somebody comes to the front door during the podcast, you got to get up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, tell me about hard things. Let's
well, that's one. Working from home is hard. You know what I mean?
That's true.
You got people come to the door with packages. At least we're not doing it live.
Yeah, you gotta like. For me, the hard thing about working from home is like actually remembering to leave the house.
Yeah, like getting out of the house once a day.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've started taking phone calls while I'm walking around.
Oh, that's my move. Helpful. That's not a hard thing. That's a delightful thing. It is. In fact, there's people in the neighborhood that are like, "Oh, there he is. That's the walking guy who does the phone calls." In fact, at the gym the other day, I had this woman come up to me and be like, "Why don't you walk around the neighborhood anymore?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. You know who I am?" She's like, "You're the dude who's walking around the neighborhood on the phone all the time." And I was like, that was probably COVID, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
We were all stuck. Anywho, my hard thing is I taught a class. This is the first class of its kind at Stanford on institutional investors. And we got to the end and, there was a couple of students that didn't pass.
Ay.
And that's hard. And I'm hoping that we'll get there. But I just, you get so invested in your students and you really want everybody to succeed. And so there's I've found myself, doing things that I don't remember professors doing for me, just like personally emailing single students and saying, how can I help you get this assignment done? Where it's like, I don't want somebody to like just not have done the work and not pass my class. Anyway, I found, and maybe I'm too invested in these students and I just got to the hard thing is like to let go. Like if they've signed up for the class and they haven't done the work, it's not my fault. It's their fault is like that's what like my wife would tell me, but I can't do that. I'm too motivated to get these students a passing grade, and it's a pass fail course, Sloan.
Oh, wow. Your problem is you care too much. It sounds like.
I think I do. Maybe that's the hard thing. You can't care a lot about things when you're doing new things.
I think you need to you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, I guess. But, if you're dealing with individual livelihoods and outcomes, where like that P versus F on the transcript can be very material. I had some professors, like when I was really depressed in college, reach out and be like, hey, how can I get you the P? Yeah. And it was,
oh, that's nice. Okay. So I'm not alone, because that's literally what I did. I wrote, how can I help you pass this? Like, here's what I detailed it. What do they got to do?
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, one of the things that Stanford allows, and everybody's going to groan because of the grade inflation component, is you can put an incomplete if the student gives you an idea of their plan on how they will complete the work. So they tell you how they're going to complete the work. Then you can give them an incomplete, and an incomplete can be updated for up to a year.
That's great.
Unless you're graduating, and then in which case that's not an option. But so that's like, I'm not giving away free grades. I want people to do the work, right? But I also know that and I'm not sure all these 18-year-olds know this, transcripts frickin' matter.
They do.
It's a little bit weird. They really do chase you around for a long time. Now that I'm in my 40s, nobody's asking me for my GPA anymore, right? But in my 30s, I feel like it still happened.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think that it particularly matters if you want to do grad school or anything like that.
Exactly.
I have a similar kind of hard thing, which is I've been basically, I hired this person, and that meant that I had to train this person. And my problem, again, on the caring too much side, is that, so I've basically created this 12-week onboarding program where I have, Gabe, who's this person, spending about 4 or 5 hours a week on continuing professional development.
Sweet.
And my problem is I'm jealous of him.
Yeah, you're I want to read books.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, and he's got there's some some A Monk papers in there. There's a bunch of homies who've been on the podcast and would be familiar. It's crazy to kind of live, go to get to the point where I'm living vicariously through this other person.
Yeah,
watching them discover organic finance for the first time.
That's a good one.
And then kind of go holy crap! I'm getting it. I'm seeing these things come together.
Yeah. You're like teaching. That's like teaching. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I can see it when the light bulbs start going off. It's wild.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Yeah. I feel like I might just need to start teaching a course somewhere at some point because it's just too fun.
Mentorship though has its own rewards, and that's
true.
What you are going through feels a little bit like what it is to be a PhD supervisor, which I've had the luxury of doing, I don't know, 10 plus times now in my life, maybe more. I guess I did put the plus, so that's that goes to infinite.
Yeah, that's true. It's a range.
But it is such a treat to have somebody know enough to ask a hard question. And my last comment on my class, which I thought was a fascinating use of ChatGPT and generative AI, I had a question in the final exam, and they wrote that and we had talked a lot about how ChatGPT is dumb, it doesn't know enough, and it lies.
Yep.
So
It hallucinates.
they put the question into ChatGPT. They published what the ChatGPT, and they critiqued ChatGPT, which revealed that the students knew more about this topic than ChatGPT. And as a reader of that, I was like, oh, wow, you really just demonstrated your knowledge in a way that is kind of profound.
Yeah. Yeah. And that like as a pedagogical method, that's a great, I mean, like, I think like having somebody mark up and respond to something.
Yeah.
Is like so much better than making them write it themselves in some ways, because then they're learning how to take an argument apart.
Yeah, it's not white belt. You're immediately yellow belt because you're having to respond and go beyond the white belt, because ChatGPT is going to give you the white belt for those karate aficionados out there.
Yeah, like I had a prospective client ask me like what method I use to come up with investment ideas, and I was like, I don't know, critical reading. Like, yeah. Anyway, I feel like it's time for the time. All of our listeners have been waiting for this one sound effect that we do in basically every episode.
We have to do it,
and you have to do it. And
honestly, it goes to a part of my being. I'm like goosebumps or whatever they're called. It's
I should make my ringtone for you on my cell phone. That
yes, yeah, just that.
I don't know
that on repeat.
Yeah, I don't know why I haven't done that. Okay, so first question. This is a great one.
Yeah.
Okay, ancient spreadsheets, right? There's the Babylon example, right? And the spreadsheet, right? Is the kind of classic accounting and finance technology.
Yeah.
Do you know of any examples of it outside of Babylon?
I do. It was fun to hear, by the way, Ruchit talk about data from our forefathers being wrong. Right? And I was like, ancestral APIs is like what went through my mind, tapping into the data of the history and using it today in your cropland. I was like, whoa, that's deep.
Oh my gosh, ancestral APIs.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm picturing like some cursed startup, like ancestral wisdom as a service or something like that.
Or it's the greatest free money podcast startup.
That's true.
Could be the number one startup in the world.
Good point.
Okay, so there's tons. There's tons of spreadsheets. The Babylonian is the fun one because it was on a tablet, and so you can tell a good joke about, we still got spreadsheets on tablets. It's just these ones aren't made of clay. That's a great joke. It lands well.
Yeah, that's really that's part of your tight five, probably.
Yeah, no, it is. It's right in there with my core comedy spiel. But there's many spreadsheets. So the one that I found that goes back the oldest is Mesopotamia. 7,000 years old spreadsheets, which in modern times would be Iraq. And it was accounting. You already called it out. These were just accounting spreadsheets. Yep. They weren't doing simple correlations. They were just tracking, this person, this quantity, this price. So you've got 3 columns and many rows going down. And they would track crops. They would track livestock, goods traded, received, and expenditures. And so I think that might qualify as the oldest spreadsheet ever found. So there's probably spreadsheets that go back to when those aliens got here that we were talking about at the top. But, we haven't found those yet.
When the aliens got here and introduced us to the principles of accounting.
Yes, exactly.
It's like we're looking for, crazy physics revelations, but it's, double entry bookkeeping that they
we reverse engineered the spreadsheet from their technology.
How lame would it be if it turned out that was like their hallmark of of like intelligence was like, how good is your accounting system? They're not like, they don't look at like how ethical is your political system or anything like that. They're just like, all right,
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. It's so cool that people have been doing the same thing.
Isn't it funny?
Forever. Yeah. Like again, like, sitting on this plot that was like somebody's dirt farm in my family, like, it's crazy to just think about this person in like 1800. Anyway. So in the portfolio for the future thing, there's this, we got this question about categorical and cultivated advantages.
Ooh.
Right? Effective use of categorical and cultivated advantages. I can't identify ours. How would you start identifying a categorical versus a cultivated advantage?
Yeah, so categorical. Somebody's really reading deep. I almost think this is a Gabe question, since
It is a Gabe question.
I was gonna say somebody's like, "Wow, somebody's got deep into my portfolio of the future."
It's almost like I've been forcing someone to read a bunch.
You're like,
of papers
read
recently.
this stuff and ask questions. All right, Gabe. Let me tell you. Look, the categorical is what you're born with. You know, it's certain people are going to be 7 feet tall and they're going to play basketball. Other people are going to be 5'4" and they're going to win a gold medal doing, gymnastics, right?
Yep.
So understanding like what your original endowment set, that's the categorical. And you kind of got to know what that is before you go and you define like, oh, I'm going to go after this asset class or this geography. If you can handle illiquidity, see if you can build a program for private equity, for real estate, for infrastructure. If you can't, then you won't. So that's the beginning of understanding that categorical. It's a lot about that investor identity work, which was the follow-on paper to that one. The cultivated is really like the compounding effects of internal investment. And this is the one that I think people miss when they simply talk about internal versus external management as a function of, what is your net return? Like when you only look at net return, you're missing the compounding effects over time of investing in your own capability.
That makes a lot of sense.
In year one, you're like, okay, if I give this manager my money to invest in agriculture, or I build my program to invest in agriculture, maybe the performance looks similar. In year 10, that manager has built all these capabilities with your fees, and then you don't have any capabilities, and maybe they're giving you more performance, but more likely they're just capturing more of the upside in their fee structure. And yet, if you had internalized it and done it, you would now have a cultivated edge in the way that TIA, now Nuveen, had built this remarkable edge in agriculture. Michigan, MERS, Michigan Employees Retirement System, weirdly, is like a very well-known agriculture investor. I think they had 8% of their portfolio in ag.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's just a function of, one, identity, where they are in the world. That's the categorical. There's like farmland around there. And then two, they just started investing and getting smart. And over time, the categorical led to the cultivated, which led to MERS having an identity related to ag.
That makes a lot of sense.
Thank God.
Thank God. So like in the Invest Vegan world, it would be like the categorical is like, okay, I'm gonna actually do some work to know who I am.
Step one,
right? Like let's not build a strategy that's predicated on trading and whatnot.
You're not going to be a high frequency trader, Sloan.
Yeah, I'm not a morning person.
No. So anything that needs you to touch the markets on a daily basis is not for you. So that's good. You just know it.
It's simply gonna not happen. Yeah. Like, and so, and you can feel bad about that, or you can get on with it.
Yeah.
And then the cultivated would be the way we take notes, the way we learn, the way we build out knowledge over time.
Yeah.
That's a great distinction. This is like, now let's talk some trash about AI.
Let's do it. Oh, fun.
Right. Like, this is the question. I feel like you're going to get this every time you give a talk for the next 7 years.
I know. It's already happening.
It really, yeah. Like, it's so do you, like, let's talk,
Well, ask the question and then we'll talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Do you think there will ever come a point where large institutions are wholly or majorly relying on investment advice from AI?
The question goes too long, right? So if we're looking at 100 years, I think there's that's going to happen. It seems too good already. Technology is continuing.
This reminds me of a Jason Voss observation. Like, most disagreements are about time horizon.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
over like a 10-year horizon, sure, maybe whatever, but like over a the next 7 years, the practical time horizon.
Yeah, in a practical time horizon, I just don't see us ceding our fiduciary duty to robots completely. I think we'll have a man-machine symbiosis. I think the really important decisions will still be human, and the machines will free humans' time to spend more time on the important things. The data entry, the simple like dashboarding, the modeling, all of that stuff, even liability projections, scenario analysis, like that type of like, I don't want to call it grunt work because it's like the classic white collar job, but those classic white collar jobs are going to be threatened by this new generative AI world. In fact, like I'm working on a startup right now with two guys that think they can kind of automate the investment memo and use generative AI to produce fully formed, 20, 30, 40 page memos. And it scares the shit out of the investment professionals who are like, no, that memo, like, that's kind of my job. Like writing that memo is like how I have an existence. And then so you have to say to them, oh, no, this isn't to replace your memo. This is a red team memo, or this is a alternative view memo. But like down the road, Sloan, it's the memo, right?
Yeah.
Down the road.
I mean, well, that it'll enable. I mean, we don't really do memos because we don't have the bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we do, like, I do 5 bullets kind of thing, not like a classic deal memo. And for a small team, that could be really useful because then you can have better. You can like it'll generate something that you can respond to, mark up, and then be like, and then get a better capture of what you're thinking.
Yeah, and you go right to the yellow belt, right? A lot of people's memos is just like, oh, let's get the risk. Let's write the risk factors again. What are our key assumptions that need to be true for this deal to work? And the beauty of having the AI do a lot of that is, one, they'll capture assumptions baked into your logic that you don't see. Interest rate assumptions, whatever, growth rate assumptions for a specific category of whatever it is. And then tracking those assumptions over time. Imagine that. Oh my God. 2 years from now, you've done 14 deals. Those 14 deals all had exposure to this assumption, which is inflation will be X. Now inflation is Y. And all of a sudden you could get an alert from your AI saying, hey, all these deals need to be revisited because of this assumption baked in. Right now, we don't do any of that, Sloan. None.
Yeah. Well, and also like, hey, Sloan, you're trading this particular category of assets in a dumb way.
Wouldn't that be neato? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just like spotting problems in the way that you're trading. And, you're getting front run because when you submit your trade, you do it through this platform, which.
Yeah. Or like you have this particular blind spot with high valuation stocks where you sell them too early.
Yeah. Oh God. De-biasing investments. Oh my God. That's the like. The problem is people usually hold them too long, right?
Exactly. Yeah, but it's like when you think about performance measurement and performance management, there's like the quantitative question of like what's the number that you put out, but then there's the management KPI question of like how do I break down and disaggregate the decisions that I've made and look at them individually and see where I'm creating and destroying value. And I can see AI being uber useful for that.
Me too.
And also in the garden.
In the garden. I mean, I think I'm already using AI in my garden with that app that I have. Picture This is what it's called. I'll just give the plug. Yeah.
I've got some 7 and 10-year-old homies down the block who I showed Picture This yesterday, and they were like loving it, absolutely loving it.
Well, sometimes you show the kids the technology, and they're like, "You're just hearing about this," but other times it's like you're doing magic.
Yeah, they're like, what plane is that? What plane is this? What plane is that?
Yeah. My kids are so much smarter than I was at their age because of the YouTubes. It is insane. My son will be like, oh, like the whole story about World War I and how it happened and, the prince getting killed. Like he'll give me like the whole story and I'll be like, I don't even know if I ever knew that, like because they're just kicking it, watching YouTubes. with like real good if you get you have to curate who you're listening to, but
you have to it's like they're just kicking it on YouTube like
yeah.
Henry comes in, he's like,
what's this
"Dad,
nationalist
like
perspective?
like how is it that like we're letting all of these homosexuals run the government, Dad?"
That has not happened. That's a hypothetical. Okay. My kids are very, very open-minded kids.
I mean, but yeah, YouTube is one of my richest information environments, and yeah, I can imagine what it would have been like to grow up with it.
Oh my God. On YouTube, the thing I found lately, I have to tell you, it's the greatest tip. It's this guy. I hit subscribe. Okay. I don't do that very much. I think I've only done that maybe once where I've fully subscribed.
Wow.
I know. It's called Rockstar, and he does voiceovers for animals.
Oh,
he talks
so
as
cute.
if he's the dog, and the dog is like, woo, but he deletes the woo, and he just adds his voice with the mouth movements. My whole family, we've watched every single Rockstar. So Rockstar, if you're out there, we love you. We think you're so good.
Yeah, I just made a note in a tab to subscribe later. There's another one called Tier Zoo, which is like it takes like it's really, really cool. It's a nature channel.
Oh,
but it takes like kind of this gaming approach to it, right? So
fun.
The idea, like like in Super Smash Brothers, for example, people will publish like tiers of different characters you can play as. Where like really competitive players and online are all playing as Zelda or something like that. But in this they go, okay, so let's do a tier ranking of snakes.
I feel like I've seen this channel. My son watches this where cool. I hear in the background on the way to school, like this dude is talking about birds and like which birds are OP and
yeah, exactly. Like how can you like make a snake a viable build?
Exactly. This build. Meta? Yeah, it's very funny. By the way, speaking of Smash Brothers, man, I've been playing some Mario Kart. It is fun. I'm back into it. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I know there's some tears that have had to happen because we're all talking SHIT at each other. Yeah, with my kids, it is so funny to be playing Mario Kart again 25 years later since my wife almost left me because I beat her at Mario Kart. But anyway, maybe that's TMI.
I think it's a timeless game, and makes me happy to be a Nintendo shareholder.
Yeah. Are you? Amazing.
Yeah. I'm very happy to see every development there. But yeah, what do you got for me in the garden, man?
So I'm growing big trees. My new thing is I cleared out a bunch of the veggies. It was just getting too wild. Yep. And I just wasn't eating enough of them. And so I found it was getting a little unruly. And I started to plant acorns, pine cones, like literally stuff I find on the ground. I'll just put in my planter and water it and see what happens.
Wow. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
And so I have a giant sequoia going right now, and it's about 3 inches. This is a baby.
Giant to
it's a small giant.
You have the right perspective.
Yeah. But then I was like, okay, so here this is the tip part of that. Which is, all right, so where do I move this thing when it's ready? And there's a whole bunch of information. It can't be like soil that's soaked, but here's the part that's the conundrum. A mature giant sequoia can use 500 to 800 gallons of water every, wait for it, day during the summer. 500 to 800 gallons. So like, I don't know where I'm going to plant this thing. Like, I don't have that. I think I got to go and plant it near a river or something. Like, I had no idea it used that much water. 800 gallons a day?
That's insane.
That's like a pool.
That's bananas. Like, water use is just one of those things where it's so counterintuitive to me how it winds up playing out. And it's fun, here in Utah, right? Like, this is a desert. Everyone's worried about water. The Great Salt Lake was drying up. Of course, the big water use is that everybody, like 68% of our water in the state goes to growing alfalfa, which is fed to cows for dairy.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, not to be the preachy vegan, but
we're putting our alfalfa where our mouth is.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, I mean, another thing that people are doing to save water is flipping their parking strip, right? So that's the strip of
Oh.
land in between the sidewalk and the street.
Okay.
Right, and like most of the time it's lawn.
Yeah.
I started to describe this when you were answering the door. You know, I've been flipping my parking strips.
No way.
Which makes our house look insane, by the way.
Oh.
Because like, you know, right now, you know, there's a pile of dirt in the front yard, and then there's a bunch of tarps covering stuff. But like, how do you kill your lawn? Right? It's an interesting question. Most people focus on keeping it alive.
Yeah.
But killing it is actually much harder.
How funny.
You know, because the thing about grass is like it seeds itself, it
Yeah.
expands, it's a very resilient plant, and it forms this thick crust,
Yeah.
you know, that you need to penetrate. So I've tried a lot of different ways to do it. The first, like, you know, and we basically have two sections that we're working on. The section that we did first, we just dumped a ton of compost on. And I got this drill bit off of Amazon that is like, it's just a big auger, and it attaches to a regular drill, and you can just use it to like till.
Cool.
And, you know, so I'm just like sitting out there with my drill. It takes a long time. It's very, you know.
Yeah.
And by the way, you look insane again.
Yeah.
What a smart person would have done
Okay.
is covered the thing with a tarp.
No sun.
No sun. Right. And so that's what we're doing with our second thing. So my tip is, if you want more garden space,
Yeah.
or you just want to save some water, go get a tarp, cover your parking strip, and wait for 5 weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then you've got like this great garden space, and like, you know, I'm planting wildflowers in mine.
Sweet.
You know,
won't be you'll be the smart one at the end of this. You look
Yeah,
crazy
exactly.
now, but at the end, people will be like, damn.
Yeah, but it's really, I mean, again, like, you know, Provo is like Pleasantville.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very like I mean, you know, we're walking distance again to Brigham Young University.
Wow.
You know, and like, so people are coming up, and you know, all the other houses have these manicured lawns and like, you know, very
Yeah.
well kept, you know, classic American gardens. And you know, I just look like a nutcase.
No, you're gonna end up winning.
Only
You're
way
gonna
to
win.
be. Only way to be.
All right, my friend.
Yeah. Well, we gotta get out of here.
We do.
Bye, listeners. We love you.
We do love you. And bye.
And bye.
I'm looking like money, 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 money. Now make it rain on 'em.